Days after the figure skating world considered the competitive season completely finished, Alysa Liu quietly stepped back onto the ice in Japan, with Ilia Malinin standing right beside her and Isabeau Levito filming the entire thing on Instagram like it was the most normal thing in the world. This is not a girl who needed to be back on the ice this soon. This is someone who just won double Olympic gold in Milan, who spent the weeks after that victory presenting Taylor Swift with an award at the iHeartRadio Music Awards and being spotted with Zendaya and Travis Kelce. She was the reigning world championship title holder heading into Prague, and she looked at her schedule, looked at everything in front of her, and decided without hesitation that she was not going to defend that title. And the skating world accepted it because she is Alysa Liu, and the rules that apply to everyone else simply do not apply to her. The question the entire figure skating community started asking the moment Levito posted that footage was why she was already back on the ice, why Malinin was with her, and what exactly was about to happen that had fans across the entire sport buzzing with an energy that felt bigger than a regular post-season story.
The answer is Stars on Ice, the annual exhibition tour that strips away every judge, every scorecard, every fraction of a point calculation, and every suffocating expectation, and replaces all of it with athletes performing purely for the love of what they do in front of crowds who came to be entertained rather than to evaluate technical execution. This year's lineup is the most compelling collection of American figure skating talent assembled on a single tour in recent memory, featuring Alysa Liu, Ilia Malinin, Isabeau Levito, Amber Glenn, and Madison Chock and Evan Bates across cities spanning the entire United States. The reason Liu, Malinin, and Levito were already together in Japan before the domestic dates even begin is that Stars on Ice carries international stops as well, and the group was already in the process of bonding, warming up, and shifting their collective mindset from competition mode into performance mode. Liu is not simply a featured skater on this tour, she is the face of the entire show, the de facto headline act, and that distinction matters enormously when you consider that millions of people who became her fans because of the Olympics and the celebrity appearances and the viral moments are about to see her skate live in person for the very first time.
Alysa Liu's crossover appeal is the kind of thing that sports organizations spend enormous budgets trying to manufacture and almost never actually achieve. And she has it completely naturally, without any visible effort or calculation behind it. She is 20 years old, she retired from the sport at 16, she came back entirely on her own terms when she was ready, rather than when anyone else thought she should be, and she won a world championship that almost nobody expected her to win before going to Milan and dominating the Olympic field. She hangs out with Taylor Swift, she carries herself with a coolness that does not feel performed or packaged for a specific audience, and she represents the genuinely rare category of athlete who can fill an arena with hardcore skating fans and people who have never watched a single competitive program in their entire lives simultaneously. The significance of those two audiences existing in the same building at the same time for Stars on Ice cannot be overstated, because converting casual Olympic viewers into people who follow the sport through its full competitive season is exactly how figure skating grows its foundation in a way that compounds over years, rather than just peaking around every Olympic cycle. The moment Alysa Liu decided to skip the World Championships in Prague, the title she had won the previous year went to Japan's Kaori Sakamoto, who claimed the championship for a historic fourth time in the final competition of her career before retiring. Sakamoto's victory was a genuinely legendary send-off for one of the most decorated skaters of her generation, a beautiful final chapter written by an athlete who gave everything to the sport across a career that deserves every superlative attached to it. But the fact that Liu was not there, that she was instead living through a period of post-Olympic life that most athletes in any sport would struggle to even imagine, is a statement about where she sits in the current hierarchy of figure skating's cultural moment. She is operating at a level where skipping a world championship she was favored to win generates less conversation about what she missed and more conversation about what she was doing instead. And that specific dynamic belongs to an extraordinarily short list of athletes in any sport at any given time.
Ilia Malinin's trajectory heading into Stars on Ice is its own compelling story, running parallel to Liu's. And the contrast between where he was 6 weeks ago and where he stands right now is one of the more dramatic competitive reversals the sport has produced in recent memory. He arrived at the Milan Winter Olympics as the undisputed favorite for individual gold, undefeated for over 2 years, carrying the label of Quad God with a technical arsenal that had no real equivalent anywhere in the men's field at the time. He fell twice in the free skate, finished 8th in the event he was supposed to win, and the skating world sat in stunned silence, processing what it had just watched happen to the most technically gifted men's skater on the planet in the single most important moment of his career. 6 weeks later in Prague, Malinin won his 3rd consecutive World Championship title, landed 5 quadruple jumps across his programs, and won the event by more than 22 points over the rest of the field in one of the most emphatic competitive statements the sport has seen in the post-Olympic window. The redemption arc Malinin completed in Prague is the kind of narrative that figure skating rarely gets to tell cleanly from beginning to end within such a compressed time frame, and it changes the energy he brings into Stars on Ice completely. He is not arriving at this tour as the man who fell at the Olympics. He is arriving as a 3-time world champion who absorbed one of the most public competitive failures of his career and responded 6 weeks later by making the answer impossible to dispute. The pressure that had been accumulating around him for years, the weight of expectations built on an undefeated streak that made every performance feel like a defense of an ideology rather than a competitive event, has been released, and what remains is a skater who has nothing left to prove to anyone in the field. When Ilia Malinin is loose, free from competitive pressure, and performing for the pure experience of being on the ice without a judges panel watching every rotation and every landing edge, he is genuinely one of the most exciting athletes to watch in any sport at any moment.
The combination of Liu and Malinin on the same tour at this specific moment in both of their careers creates something that Stars on Ice has not had in exactly this form before. 2 headliners who are each carrying completely different but equally powerful stories into the same arenas across the same weeks. Liu is the face of a post-Olympic ascension into mainstream cultural territory that figure skating has rarely touched, a young athlete who moved from the Olympic podium to celebrity circles with a naturalness that felt completely unforced and made new audiences want to follow wherever she went next. Malinin is the face of a redemption that completed itself publicly and conclusively, a competitor who experienced the most visible failure of his career in front of hundreds of millions of people and then walked back into the competitive arena 6 weeks later and won the whole thing by 22 points. Those 2 stories do not just complement each other on a tour poster, they create a dynamic inside an arena where every person in the building, regardless of how long they have been following figure skating, has a reason to be emotionally invested in what they are watching. Add Isabeau Levito, Amber Glenn, and Madison Chalk and Evan Bates to that lineup, and the depth of what Stars on Ice is presenting this year becomes something that serious skating fans will look back on as a genuinely exceptional moment in the tour's history. Levito has been developing into one of the most artistically distinctive skaters in the American field, bringing an elegance to her programs that consistently reminds audiences why the expressive dimension of figure skating matters as much as the technical one. Amber Glenn has built a reputation for skating with a rawness and emotional authenticity that translates powerfully in an exhibition context where the pressure of judges and scores is removed and the connection between athlete and audience becomes the entire point of being in the building. Chalk and Bates bring the kind of pairs chemistry that comes from years of shared competitive experience at the highest levels of the sport, and in an exhibition setting where storytelling through movement becomes the primary language, that chemistry is exactly what fills an arena with the kind of energy that makes people want to come back. The broader context of where figure skating sits right now as a sport makes the timing of this tour more significant than a typical post-Olympic exhibition year would normally produce. The Milan Winter Games delivered storylines that reached audiences far beyond the traditional figure skating fanbase. Alysa Liu's double gold, Ilia Malinin's fall, and the conversation it sparked about mental pressure and sustainability in elite sport. Isabeau Levito's artistic statement, Amber Glenn's public honesty about the isolation that elite skating imposes on the people inside it. Those stories generated conversations on platforms that do not normally cover figure skating, among people who do not normally follow the competitive season. And Stars on Ice is arriving at precisely the moment when that expanded audience is most primed to take the next step from watching viral clips to actually sitting in an arena. If there is a year where Stars on Ice has the capacity to convert a wave of Olympic interest into sustained long-term fan engagement, this is that year, and the lineup assembled for it is exactly the right collection of athletes to make that conversion happen at scale. The footage from Japan that Levito posted, the two of them laughing on the ice without a care in the world, without a scorecard in sight, without the weight of an entire sport's expectations pressing down on every movement, is the most honest possible preview of what Stars on Ice is actually going to feel like this year. The grind that both Liu and Malinin went through across this Olympic cycle, the sacrifices, the pressure, the public scrutiny, the falls, and the recoveries, is finished for this chapter, and what remains is the part of being an elite athlete that is genuinely worth watching because it comes from a place of freedom rather than obligation. Alysa Liu is back on the ice because she wants to be there, because the sport gives her something that celebrity appearances and red carpets and viral moments cannot replace, and because she is 20 years old and capable of doing something at an elite level that virtually no one else on Earth can do. And that combination does not stay away from the ice for very long, regardless of how full the schedule around it becomes. Stars on Ice begins in 2 weeks, and the case for calling it the most compelling version of that tour in recent memory is sitting right there in the footage from Japan. Two of the biggest names in American figure skating on the ice together, doing exactly what they were born to do with nothing left to prove and everything left to enjoy.